Since childhood, I've longed for a normal, peaceful family. I grew up in an institution, never knowing the warmth of parents and without any blood relatives. As a child, I was cared for my foster parents, but we were not blood related. I wanted a family I could proudly call my own. A loving husband, a child who shares my blood, and me with a smiling face. That was my ideal family. So when my kind-hearted boyfriend of that time proposed, I was truly happy. With him, I believed I could build the family I envisioned. However, I had no idea that behind the dreamy happiness lay an extraordinary misfortune. Even after a tiring day at work, my husband Tom would command me as if it were natural. "Hey, Emily, my man and Catherine are hungry. Hurry up and make dinner." This has become a daily routine where the moment I come home, Tom orders me to prepare dinner. Neither Tom, my mother-in-law, nor my sister-in-law ever do any chores and show no intention of doing so. I am Emily, a 29-year-old working for a major company. I ended up with a family that was nothing like I had imagined. My husband Tom works at the same company as me. Tom, at 30, is a year older than me. But since he took a year off before entering college, we joined the company at the same time. However, Tom has now left his job and is unemployed. Tom, who used to work in sales, resigned after a conflict with his boss. Tom blames his boss for everything, but the reality seems a bit different. I work in a different department, so even after getting married, I continue to work at the same company. I work in the General Affairs department, handling administrative tasks for the entire company. Thanks to my diligent work, I've gained the trust of my colleagues and superiors, and they often entrust me with responsibilities. One day, the head of Tom's sales department came to me for advice. I was nervous, wondering what had happened since I rarely interact with the sales manager. He, with an exasperated tone, said, "I assume you know because you're his wife. But a little while ago, Tom came to me and said he wanted to quit the job." "What? This is the first time hearing of this. Was there a serious issue or something?" Startled by this sudden news, the manager hurriedly began to explain. "I always try to support my staff's personal lives and situations, but..." According to the sales manager, Tom frequently left work unfinished and went home, expecting others to complete it. Furthermore, he then forces the remaining works onto his colleagues who cannot rebel against him. When the manager confronted him about his behavior, instead of showing remorse, Tom became enraged. What's more, Tom falsely claimed that he and I split the housework evenly. He also insisted that he had to return home early because his mother and sister were unwell. The manager, reluctant to interfere in personal matters, could now insist that Tom stay and complete his work. However, the colleague burdened with Tom's workload was mentally and physically drained, wanting to resign. So the manager told Tom, "Family is important, but you have to take responsibility for your own work and finish it properly." Upon hearing this, Tom, unable to get his way, decided to quit. "I feel bad saying this to you, but honestly, I was relieved when he said he wanted to quit." Perhaps feeling guilty towards me, the manager expressed his true feelings while observing my reaction. In reality, Tom was selfish and a troublemaker, even though he was not competent at his job. Every time the manager gave him a warning, he would repeatedly rebel without remorse. Upon hearing the truth about Tom's work attitude, it became clear that he was an unwanted nuisance in the sales department. After learning the truth, I apologized profusely and said, "I am truly sorry for the trouble Tom has caused everyone in the sales department." Seeing my response, the manager kindly reassured me, that it wasn't my fault or responsibility. On the contrary, he was exasperated by Tom, who made such a major decision without consulting his wife. I just wanted to double-check. Is his mother and sister recovering from illness? Is he really helping with the chores at home? All of those stories are lies. My mother-in-law and sister-in-law are not sick, and he has never once done housework. Upon hearing the truth, the manager genuinely expressed his concern. I see. All lies. It must be hard for you. With that, Tom, my husband, became unemployed by his own doing. He seemed optimistic, thinking he could easily find another job, but reality wasn't so kind. When he tried to switch jobs and had job interviews, he kept getting rejected. Tom believed that his previous boss was spreading bad rumors about him to other companies and held a grudge. To be clear, my company would never engage in such underhanded tactics. Normally, even if you submit the resignation letter, you need to stay at the company for at least a month for handover purposes. It's common sense as a working adult to properly handle all necessary procedures and tasks. But Tom handed in his resignation letter to the manager and immediately left that very day. No company would want to hire someone who could do such a thing so casually. Tom gave his mother and sister a meager severance pay and was self-satisfied. He grew up in a single-parent household. His only sister is Catherine. Their parents divorced, and their father left. In retrospect, it might have been the right decision. Both his mother and Catherine are healthy and can work, but they do nothing all day. As a result, I handle all the housework and even pay for their living expenses. Naturally, handling everything by myself is tough. I asked Tom to help out, but he always shouted at me. You're my wife, right? My mother and Catherine are my precious family. Isn't it natural for a wife to serve the family? Serve the family? I didn't think that was necessary at all, so I argued back. Look, I can understand your mother, but can't Catherine at least get a part-time job? She's only 23, right? Catherine, who is 7 years younger than Tom, was very much loved by Tom, perhaps because of her age. Catherine always took advantage of Tom, constantly asking for pocket money and spending it frivolously. Even when Tom became unemployed, Catherine continued to demand money. When I refused, Tom felt he had no choice but to start working part-time. The job he got was managing packages for a delivery service. Tom apparently told his coworkers and neighbors that he left a major company because his family was sick, and he had to take care of them. For his own self-preservation and that of his family, he will, as a matter of course, tell a bunch of lies to keep up appearances. The salary Tom earned from his part-time job went straight to Catherine, who used it for her own leisure. And Catherine started to hang out with men she met without doing any housework or job. As for the mother-in-law, she unbelievably began taking money from my purse. I lost my patience and told Tom about her actions, but he got angry at me instead. Hey, you're my wife. There's nothing wrong with that. She's my mother. You should take better care of her. This is why you're a single one with no relatives. Even though I was the victim, he scolded me as if I was in the wrong. While doing so, his mother mockingly added, Oh, Emily, you're so petty and mean. Amidst these heartless daily interactions, one day, I had a life-changing encounter. After finishing work and doing my usual grocery shopping, I came home to find an unfamiliar pair of shoes at the entrance. From the large size of the shoes, I knew these are for men. Seeing that the shoes were bigger than Tom's, I assumed the guest had arrived, and soon after, a young man energetically came out from the living room. With a bright brown hair, a handsome face, a tall stature, he looked just like a model. I assumed Catherine had brought her boyfriend over. I'm sorry. I was going to go out with Catherine, but I'll pretend it never happened. The young man sadly apologized. At first glance, he seemed like a playboy. But when he spoke, he was polite and sensible. As a young man was about to leave, putting on his shoes at the entrance, I decided to at least ask for his name. Excuse me, I'm Catherine's sister-in-law, Emily. May I ask your name? Upon my introduction, the young man looked at me and smiled gently. Though he seemed casual, his smile seemed wise. After putting on his shoes, he faced me. Nice to meet you. My name's Robert. I work as a bartender, and Catherine was a regular at my bar. Listening to him, it turned out that Catherine had asked to go on a date to Robert. Initially, he was planning to accept it, but he ultimately declined. The reason he turned her down was that Catherine got drunk and revealed her true nature. My sister-in-law is ugly and stingy. That's why the money I have is what my brother earned from his part-time job. Because she's such a wife. She makes him do everything around the house. Robert had heard all those terrible stories and felt regretted that he was still not mature enough to look at women. However, being the kind-hearted person he is, he couldn't leave the heavily drunk Catherine alone and escorted her home. He even paid for her taxi fare. Unfortunately, on this particular day, Tom and the mother-in-law were out. Robert had no choice but to get the house keys from drunk Catherine and escorted her to the living room. I couldn't just leave her at the front door. I promise I didn't steal anything. He said he works as a bartender trainee at night, but during the day, he attends the vocational school. Today, he was summoned by Catherine right after his classes ended. Unemployed Catherine lied to Robert, telling him she works at the luxury brand store. Robert believed her lie and almost started dating her before realizing her true nature. Contrary his appearance, he was a sincere and honest young man. He mentioned that his bright brown hair was natural. People often comment on my hair color, but I'm actually mixed. Oh, here's my business card from the bar I work at. Goodbye for now. He said he was heading to his bar job. Thank you for bringing her all the way here. Good luck. As I thanked Robert on Catherine's behalf, he gave a quick smile and hurriedly left. Normally, if a man who has a relationship with Catherine entered our home without permission, I would call the police without hesitation. However, meeting Robert just now, I instinctively felt he was a trustworthy and sincere young man. I truly felt it was fortunate they didn't end up dating after realizing Catherine's true nature. As I entered the living room, there lay Catherine, still heavily drunk. Though she was in the way, I covered her with a blanket so she wouldn't catch a cold. Catherine then stirred from the noise and began to speak without being clear-headed. Robert, where's he? He's my boyfriend. He has brown hair and he's so handsome. As Catherine boasted and laughed loudly, she suddenly shouted after checking her smartphone. Robert had conveyed to the drunk Catherine that he couldn't date her, but it seemed pointless. Drunken and memory-loss Catherine didn't understand Robert's feelings. However, anticipating this, Robert had sent a proper email to turn her down. Sadly, Catherine didn't remember revealing her true self while drunk. Believing she was rejected by Robert, she began ranting in tears. What? Why? I feel deceived. What's wrong with me? It seemed Catherine was the one pretending to be someone she's not. It was Robert who was the real victim here. I deliberately ignored her and began preparing dinner. Tom and the mother-in-law then returned. Seeing a crying and angry Catherine, the two were shocked. After listening to her one-sided story, Tom became furious. What? He abandoned Catherine? Was he just playing with you? I'll go punch that person. Where's this place? Oh, poor Catherine. We must demand compensation. Indeed, it is unfortunate for Catherine, but this is nothing more than spite. Internally, I was worried and thinking, this might cause a lot of trouble for Robert. When suddenly Catherine glared at me. Hey, Emily, did you say something unnecessary to Robert? Saying that, she thrust a message on her smartphone in front of me. I sighed upon seeing the email. It read, I cannot be with someone who lies. Although Catherine herself had said all of those things, she seemed to believe that I had revealed her true nature to Robert. With Tom and my mother-in-law both pressing me, I explained the situation when I ran into Robert at the entrance when I came home. Robert helped the drunken Catherine and escorted her home. Then he happened to meet me as he was about to leave. That's all. I clearly conveyed to Robert that I hadn't said a word more than that. Hearing that, Tom clicked his tongue and distanced himself from me. Alright, sushi. Catherine, to change your mood, let's eat some top-grade sushi today. Saying so, Tom ordered delivery sushi without even checking with me. The cost of that deluxe sushi came from the money I earned, yet he only ordered for 3. When the sushi arrived, they didn't touch the dinner I had prepared with effort. And the 3 of them started eating the sushi, leaving me out. I reluctantly ate the dinner I had made by myself. The 3 of them were chuckling and saying something on the side. It's so delicious to eat sushi as a family. It tastes even better because we always have such shabby food. Yeah, it's really good. It's a nice change because the food we had is always not tasty. Tom said that and laughed mockingly with the mother-in-law and Catherine. I listened to their laughter, held back my emotions, and felt emptiness. Is this the kind of family I wanted? It all seems so ridiculous. Then, I suddenly remembered the face of the guardian who raised me, the only family I had, with whom I lost touch after getting married. For some reason, I also remembered Robert's gentle smile. A few days later, a new opportunity came my way. On my day off from work, while cleaning the house, Tom approached with a cash card in hand. I panicked when I saw the cash card. It contained the money I had saved little by little before getting married. But Tom was flaunting my cash card as if he had won. I've decided to give $68,000 you saved to my mom and Catherine. If you object, I will divorce you. I had been diligently saving the money, hoping to use it for my children when they were born. I thought that if I had children with Tom, he would distance himself from his mother and Catherine. However, Tom bluntly rejected my dream of wanting children, saying, I'm not interested in kids. My mom and Catherine are more important. Fine, use it however you want. I always believed that I could build a simple, happy family, but now I realized it was an impossible dream. I quietly showed the divorce papers to Tom. If you want to have this, divorce me. I can't go anymore. Thinking he might be a bit surprised, Tom happily filled out immediately. It's over. I'm free from this man. Ignoring Tom, who was exhilarated after getting a lot of money, I began packing to leave the house. After gathering my belongings and leaving the house, I immediately submitted the divorce papers to the city hall, and they were accepted without issue. After the divorce, I returned to my foster father's home. My foster father is often away from home due to his busy work schedule, so in reality it is as if I am living on my own. When I called him about the divorce, he wasn't angry but listened patiently. He said,
"Emily, you've had it tough. Come back home soon."
Looking back, I've been rebellious against my foster father since my teenage years. Yet, without saying anything, he welcomed me back, and I felt tears welling up. Despite our estrangement and the fact that I had repaid his kindness, he forgave me without saying a word. After returning home and spending a lot of time alone, various memories from my childhood began to resurface. I remembered when I was taken in by my foster father from the children's home and first came to this house. Back then, my mother-in-law was still alive and treated me as if I was her own daughter. However, she fell ill and passed away when I was in junior high school. After her death, I started rebelling against my foster father. My foster father, often away due to work, left me feeling a void in my heart, which I filled with rebellion. But thinking about it now, my foster father cared about me just as much as my mother-in-law did. I always wanted a normal family, and I had forgotten the love of the person closest to me who had always cherished me. Now that I'm divorced and have nothing to left, maybe I can find someone peace? Without any more worries or stress, I worked even harder than before. During this time, I happened to meet Robert again. One day, after finishing work, I was waiting for the elevator when I happened to meet the sales department manager. As I was about to greet him, he spoke to me first.
"Hi, you've had your share of challenges, but you look much better than before. I'm glad."
The manager knew about my divorce with Tom. He praised me for my hard work and effort up to now. I thanked him. As we got on the elevator together, he approached me with a request.
"Speaking of which, there is a popular bar in the sales department. It's a bit awkward for me to go alone."
I recalled that the manager is married and had a wife and a child in high school. Really? What kind of places? Like a cafe? Upon hearing this, a manager suddenly made a request.
"It's actually a bar. The thing is, I'm not great with alcohol, but I've always been fascinated by bars."
That's why the manager asked me to come with him. I knew how serious and reliable the manager was, so I decided to go to the bar with him. The bar he had heard about from the subordinate was a secretive underground spot. Standing outside the bar, the manager whispered,
"Man, I'm nervous,"
and gently opened the door. The interior of this first-time visit exuded a chic, calming vibe seemingly popular among the youth. As I walked further in, glancing at the bar counter, I recognized the familiar face and was taken aback. Is that Robert? To my surprise, the bartender on the other side was Robert, whom I had met at Tom's house. Seeing me, he too seemed surprised by the unexpected reunion, but soon greeted me with a warm smile.
"Welcome, Emily. It's been a while."
The manager, taken aback by the stylish and handsome bartender, raised his voice in surprise.
"What? You two know each other?" A female employee in my department was talking about how there's this really good-looking guy here. "Really, you look like an actor."
The manager chuckled. Robert bashfully replied,
"Thank you. I'm not that great. Just a trainee bartender. Have you decided on your order?"
I, not being a regular at bars, asked Robert for a cocktail recommendation. The manager, not being fond of alcohol, ordered a non-alcoholic cocktail. The bar itself has a quiet atmosphere, and the customers are all classy people who enjoyed a quiet cocktail. It turned out that Robert's father owned this bar.
I chose the university to rebel against my father. But over time, seeing him work, I started to admire it and decided I'd like to follow this path too.
Robert said this as he prepared our drinks. At that moment, I shared the news of my divorce from Tom. The manager, who had been sipping on his brightly colored cocktail, suddenly raised his voice in excitement.
Unbelievable. Your ex-husband is hopeless. He didn't deserve any severance pay.
Sir? Are you getting drunk on the non-alcoholic drink? As I asked this with a wry smile, Robert chuckled and prepared the mint soda. He gently placed the finished mint soda in front of the manager. After taking a sip and calming down, the manager turned to Robert with a question.
By the way, Robert, I have a question. Do you ever say, "It's from that customer over there," like in drama?
Hearing the manager's earnest question, Robert burst out laughing.
Well, I've never done that. And honestly, I've never heard of it being done either. Maybe it's just an urban legend?
As we sipped our cocktails and continued our pleasant conversation, my phone suddenly rang. In a panic, I tried to step outside to answer, but Robert reassured me that it was okay to speak inside. Checking the caller ID, it was shockingly from my ex-husband, Tom. Although the call dampened the mood, persistent ringing compelled me to answer. But before I could inquire about his reason for calling, Tom's loud voice erupted in anger from the other side.
Hey, what's the deal? I can't withdraw money from this bank book. It's empty.
Of course it is, because I've already transferred the money from the bank book to another account. Think about it. Would you leave the cash card with $68,000 in a house with greedy people who don't hesitate to touch others' money? Normally, you'd anticipate it being stolen and take necessary precautions. I left the decoy cash card and Tom took it from me. The real cash card with the money is securely managed by me. So I have $68,000 that Tom and his family thought they had received. When I told Tom this truth, he couldn't hide his shock. Thinking they had come into a lot of money, they went on an overseas trip as a family of 3, and seemed to have splurged quite a bit. They even gambled without restraint and seemed to be running out of funds. Hence, they thought of using the $68,000 they took from me. But they couldn't withdraw the money, so he called me in desperation. In his panic, Tom demanded that I send him $68,000 right away. I can't comply with that. After all, I gave you that cash card because you wanted it. After our divorce, I even gave you the house. I've done my part, so I have no further obligations, I said. Amid this exchange, Robert said he had something to convey and asked for my phone.
Hello? This is Robert. Your sister has left a bar tab of $2,000. Could you pay for it?
After conveying the message to Tom, Robert promptly handed the phone back to me. That's the situation, big brother. Please pay for the sake of our dear mother and sister. On the other end of the line, Tom seemed to be screaming for help, but I hung up without listening. I apologized to Robert for causing a commotion in such a lovely bar, but he smiled and served me a cocktail.
This one's on me. Don't hesitate. And for the boss, it's ginger ale, so no worries. Alright, it feels great. Cheers!
Thus, along with the manager and Robert, I toasted to the karma catching up with Tom. Tom ended up with a significant debt due to his own actions. Apparently, When he was stranded and desperate in his overseas hotel, a gentleman approached him. Turns out, this gentleman was a financial executive. Seeing Tom's plight, he generously lent some money. Tom, desperate for cash, accepted the loan without considering the interest rates. As a result, his debt has ballooned to $338,000, putting him in a tight spot. However, the gentleman who helped him overseas seems very kind and even offered Tom a job to repay his debt. It seems that Tom is now working on a fishing boat. They operate globally, so I don't know where they are now. Of course, they owe money to both their mother-in-law and Catherine. They work non-stop, only taking breaks to sleep. The house they lived in has been sold, and now they live in poverty in a small apartment. As for me, after the divorce, I continue to live with my stepfather at my childhood home. And unusually, my often absent stepfather is home today, so we had a pleasant chat. But you're so prepared, helping out my ex-husband in such a cruel way. Actually, it was my stepfather who loaned money to Tom, landing him into deep debt. My stepfather is a well-known figure in the financial industry and has connections in various sectors. It seems that Tom and his family went on an overseas trip using the assets I left behind when I moved out. Tom couldn't afford such a trip on his part-time job earnings, so he sold all the jewelry I left behind. Tom and his family were soaring and happy to have a considerate amount of cash in an instant. They then spent that money generously overseas. When I was getting married, my stepfather told me one thing he wanted me to definitely keep in mind. It was to leave behind all the jewelry in the event of the divorce. Honestly, I'm surprised by Dad's audacious thinking and execution. It turns out, the gold dealer where Tom enthusiastically exchanged the jewelry for cash was connected to my stepfather, and he heard that after selling the jewelry, Tom and the others went on a trip abroad. You always show up at the perfect time to help Tom and his family when they're in trouble, Dad. You know everything.
That's right. I receive all sorts of information. Like, recently, my daughter met a young bartender and they've become good friends.
Hearing my stepfather say that with a chuckle, I almost choked on my tea. After the incident at the bar with Tom, the manager took a significant liking to Robert. Afterwards, the manager invited colleagues, and I joined them for drinks at the bar. Suddenly, the manager asked Robert a question.
Robert, seriously, is there anyone in this bar you like? No lies.
At the seemingly orchestrated question from the manager, Robert turned bright red and looked at me. Yes, Robert, who is 23, had a crush on me. Turns out, he had fallen in love with me at first sight when we met at my ex-husband's place. But Robert was not so sure, saying that he was still young and inexperienced and that he would not be a match for me.
That's not true. You're a great guy. You're good looking and have a fantastic personality. Ask her out.
I tried to stop the suddenly forceful manager, but in an unexpected moment, I was asked on a date by Robert.
Emily, I love you. I'm still inexperienced, but if you're okay with that, please go out with me. Hold on, I'm 6 years older than you, turning 29, and I'm divorced. I don't care about any of that. I love you. And so, I ended up with a younger boyfriend. The manager was as pleased as if it were his son, saying, I brought the two of you together.
I was planning to tell my stepfather later, but he already knew.
Actually, I went to Robert's bar. He's a very good young man. Completely different from your ex-husband who can only look down on people.
Oh, Dad, you always go too far. Indeed, my stepfather has always been overly protective since I was a child. While he can be over the top, like when he harshly dealt with Tom, who mistreated me, he's usually a very kind father. Once again, I feel so lucky to be my stepfather's daughter. Dad, thank you for always looking out for me. Saying that with a smile, expressing my genuine gratitude. My stepfather smiled warmly back. For a change of pace and some rest, I'm thinking of going a trip with my stepfather soon. By the way, Robert is also joining us on a trip. I've decided to marry Robert. He'll soon come to greet my stepfather fondly. I believe that my kind stepfather and the sincere, serious Robert will get along well. And so, I shared with my stepfather my desire to build a new life with Robert, expressing it with a laugh. Hearing this, my stepfather gently smiled and congratulated me, saying,
Congratulations. I'm happy for you, Emily.